Hi everyone, I'm Rob King and this is the Beavertown neck oil clone version 2. Well, you see, what happened was last time it all went wrong. A mistake in the grain order resulted in a very weak brew, which I then tried to recover by adding some extra sugar. It all ended up being a very pale imitation. This time though, I can guarantee it's gonna be better. It turned out fantastic. Cheers. So unlike our normal step-by-step video that goes through in a lot of detail, this time we're going to fast forward through the whole thing and get to that very important end result. Right, let's get going. Let's face it, starting with the correct grain bill is a big help. After that, the other change I've made was adjusting the quantity of hops based on the alpha acid percentages. Simply putting it into Brewfather gives you the adjusted amount. For equipment, the Aldi mulled wine warmer is coming out again. Previously upgraded to attach a pump, this time I've been very whizzy and attached a whirlpool. The instructions are linked above if you're interested. This is going to be a brew in the bag recipe, and you can check out the previous video for all of the paraphernalia that we're going to use. This time, however, we're also going to use some hop bags to try and reduce the amount of sediment that there is in the wort at the point of transfer. No surprises. Step 1 then is to sanitize all of the equipment that you'll be using. Step 2 is to heat up 15 litres of bottled water to 70 degrees C. The water we're going to be using is Tesco's Ashbeck English mineral water. All of the mineral content is conveniently listed on the side of the bottle, allowing us to calculate the water chemicals that are going to be needed in this particular brew. This mineral water makes a great starting water as the mineral content is fairly low, making it easy to add the required minerals for the style that we're looking for. Some mineral waters have a very high mineral content, making it difficult to then balance to the target profile that you're after. In this instance, our target profile is the David Heath Session IPA profile, which is ideal for a hoppy IPA. Brewfather does all of the heavy lifting for us, calculating the water chemicals we're going to need to reach the target profile. In this chart you can see how each chemical addition brings up the key elements of calcium, magnesium, sodium, chloride, sulfate and bicarbonate to achieve the final result that we're looking for. Once the strike temperature has been reached, mash in the grains and mix thoroughly before you seal up the bag. The mash itself is going to last for 60 minutes and will hold the temperature at 67 degrees centigrade. We're going to leave it there now for 15 minutes and then take a pH reading. Once we've taken a sample, we're going to have to get that temperature down to room temperature really quickly. A quick and easy way to do this is to use a bowl with a large surface area, cools it down rapidly and we can take a reading. It turned out that pH level was a bit high at 5.7, so I added 1 ml of lactic acid to reduce that pH down to somewhere in the range of 5.6. The pH stuck pretty steadfastly at 5.6 throughout the whole brew. This is rather at the top end and I would have preferred it to be just a bit lower. Last time I'd used 3 ml of lactic acid and it stayed about 5.4 throughout the whole brew. I wish I'd have used 3 ml on this occasion. To mash out, we're going to raise the temperature up to 76 degrees and hold it there for 10 minutes. After a 60-minute mash and another 10-minute mash out, it's time to remove the bag of grains from the wort. This is not strictly a brew in the bag technique, as normally you would stop there, but it is possible to cycle the wort through the grains, thereby extracting just that little bit extra sugar by actually sparging effectively some of those grains. We're going to add first wort hops. Now first wort hops are added immediately after the mash while you're still bringing the wort up to the boil. First wort hops, by steeping in the wort for longer, improve flavour, aroma and the final complexity of the beer. A reading is taken pre-boil to calculate mash efficiency. In this instance we were dead on target at 1.035 and giving us a mash efficiency of 70%, exactly the value we'd used in Brewfather when we'd done our additions calculations. And for the first 30 minutes of the boil, there really is nothing to do. 30-minute hop addition. Eventually, at 10 minutes, we get to add 6 grams of Fermado. Fermado is a yeast nutrient. We've also got 10 grams of Irish moss to help with clarity. At this point, we're also going to add the chiller. The boiling wort acts as a sanitizer on the chiller before we need to use it. We're ready to begin cooling. First of all, we're going to bring it down to 80 degrees C for the hop stand. All 7 of the hops are being used for the hop stand, which is going to run for 30 minutes. The hop stand has 5 minutes left and we're going to start the whirlpool. Both valves have been opened. You can see the wort in their tube. There was an issue. One of the bags of hops was blocking the tube in. However, now we've turned it on, instant. Hop stand is over. First of all, we remove the hops and now we can begin cooling to reduce the temperature down to 22 degrees centigrade. The new whirlpool upgrade is working great. Now whirlpooling will bring anything still in suspension into the centre of the kettle. This will mean that when we transfer we are bringing through the clearest wort we possibly can. I'm continuing to use the pump to transfer to the bucket. I'm also holding the pipe just above the bucket to be able to aerate the wort to help with fermentation. Full confession, I probably overpitched this one. I'm using the full 11 gram packet of Safe Ale US-05 yeast in this brew, which probably is more than is necessary. You can also see that it settled there on the top of the foam, so it needed a good old stir to mix it in before we added the airlock. Our original gravity is 1.044 versus a target of 1.041. So far so good. We now move on to fermentation.
Nothing is ever simple, no pressure in the bubbler. That seems pretty promising. I think somehow the problem was probably a seal on the bucket. Aroma, wonderful.
Now it's day 4, time for dry hopping. The gravity has already reached 1.012 against our target of 1.009, so we are closing in that rapidly. This time, when I do the dry hops, I'm going to add some of these glass balls that we use for reducing headspace in demijohns. This will help the dry hops to sink to the bottom, something I had a problem with. They seemed to float when we did the last brew. We have now been dry hopping for 3.5 days. Dry hopping is on average 3 to 4 days, and any longer than this can draw out undesirable grassy characteristics in the final brew. The next step is to put this in the fridge for a cold crash. Cold crash ended up being 6 days instead of just 2. Life took over, you know how that goes. Anyway, we're now at the stage where we're going to transfer to secondary. This is my new 10 litre demijohn. It's a wide neck demijohn, which tends to be quite an expensive item in the UK, but I finally managed to find one at a reasonable price.
That is absolutely a ton of trub there at the bottom, so fining is definitely needed.
Fermentation is over, it's time to take a sample and calculate that final gravity. Well, it's 1.008 against a target of 1.009. That is very good indeed. Well, this is looking very promising. These are gelatin finings added in 2 doses an hour apart, and then we'll need to transfer out again within 24 to 72 hours. So first of all, for roughly 10 litres, that's 4 millilitres of finings that we're going to put in.
ml.
I'm also going to give it a blast of CO2 to help protect it from the air while we're opening and closing the demijohn.
Back in 1 hour. That's 4. This seems to be like an alternative bubbler. We'll see if it's true.
This is a time-lapse video that took place over a period of about 40 minutes following adding the second set of finings. It's absolutely fascinating how quickly the particles fall out of suspension and you get that wispy trub at the bottom of the jar. In hindsight, I wish I'd have only left the finings to run for 24 hours. The level of clarity it produced was incredible, but actually a neck oil clone has just a slight bit of colour to it, and I lost some of that through the addition of the finings.
It's been 2.5 days since adding the finings. It really is starting to clear quite well. Lovely wispy sediment that's dropped out to the bottom, so today it's just about to transfer and see where we are.
It's time to transfer, ready for bottling. This is my new 12-litre bucket, coming with a handy little tap as well that should make the next step of bottling much simpler. I was perhaps a bit overcautious in how much I left behind, but I wanted to transfer as little sediment as possible. For carbonation, my plan is to move the first 4 litres to the mini keg and then the remainder to bottles. The keg carbonation will be ready much more quickly, but with so many hops in this brew, leaving the bottles a bit longer should smooth it all out. For bottle carbonation, we're adding 5 grams per litre of sugar, that's 15 grams for the remaining 3 litres. The new tap on this bucket plus gravity made the keg very easy to fill. Hopefully the bottling wand will work just as well.
It does appear to be as easy as it seems.
This method of bottling certainly is a nice gig. I've finally got the hang of this bottle capper too. The bottles are going into a box at room temperature for a couple of weeks to carbonate. Meanwhile, for the keg, we sit and wait.
It's a slightly lower pressure in the hope the gas will last while I'm on holiday. Here we are then. Right colour, very nice golden colour. Still got that beautiful hoppy aroma. Probably not as strong as the pale imitation, but perfectly on form for what we're looking for. But it's all in the taste. That is wonderful. Very smooth. Just almost that very slightest hint of the bitter aftertaste, but it's not bitter, it's really quite smooth. I wonder if that will just round out a bit with a sort of another couple of weeks. Second time lucky. Happy homebrewing everyone. Cheers, good health.
Welcome to the Shootout. This is where we compare our results to the pale imitation and to the real thing to see how close we got. What do you think of these labels? They are fab, do you not think? So here we have the pale imitation on the right, our version 2 on the left, and you really can see it just does not have the same shine and colour that we've got from our V2. Now it's time to see how we did against the real thing. So our version from the keg is on the right, and this pour from the one on the left is of course the real thing. The Beavertown Neck Oil Session IPA in all its wonderful glory.
Well, I think we can safely say they both enjoy the good amount of carbonation. Colour-wise, a little more golden, isn't it? Didn't quite get that colour. Though funny enough, more clarity in my one. Those findings perhaps took some of that. There is a nice little bit of haze in the original. Aromas I think are going to be quite similar. Yeah, that mosaic comes through quite strong actually. And very similar. I think actually this is just a little stronger on the aroma. Yes, definitely. But the aroma is very, very, very similar. Of course, it was always going to be in the taste that it really mattered. So this is the original. Well, I did say this is one of my favourite drinks. And it certainly is. It goes down very smoothly, nice level of smooth bitterness. But we are here for a comparison. So, I have really enjoyed this. My keg is almost empty, so I had to record this before it ran out. I have been enjoying this tremendously. Just as smooth on that taste. Level of bitterness on the aftertaste just a touch higher. I think we had that on the pale imitation as well, interestingly. Mouthfeel very similar. Again, hugely drinkable. This time around, I think it's a closer call between the two. Of course, you can tell the original. Cheers everybody, thanks for watching number 2. Please do like and subscribe. Happy homebrewing.
Welcome finally to the lessons learned, and let's face it, this whole episode is a lesson learned, which is to definitely buy the right number of grains that you're going to require for your brew. Having learned that lesson though, there were a couple of other things during this episode that were a bit new. The first of which of course was the whirlpool, which I'm still getting used to, but certainly seemed to work out quite well, particularly in cooling. I think there is where it actually helped to cool things down much quicker than previously. The second lesson then is the use of finings, and I did end up with a wonderfully clear brew, but the actual neck oil itself does have a touch of haze to it, does have a touch of that colour, which I eliminated by the very long use of finings. I think I could have just got away with it by using finings for perhaps 24 hours. However, the taste, fab. And finally, lesson number 3 was my new 12 litre bucket. I have been doing slightly bigger brews between 8 and 10 litres, and you need a little bit of extra room for the Krausen and the headspace when you're doing those brews. So a new 12 litre bucket was in order. Works well. I hope you've all enjoyed this episode. Cheers everyone, happy home brewing. Please do like and subscribe. Good health.
Oh, it's been a long day today. I could just drink all of that, and I will.
And of course the evaluation was great.